Diego?
Oh, sorry. Just mute. Oh, sorry.
Should we get that out or something?
Okay. Yeah. I see. Was that what was making the noise, was it?
Yeah. Cool. Do we get extra? We joined online and then themselves.
Did you unmute it, Steven?
Stream.
Yeah, I did.
Awesome. Go for it.
Okay. This is Steven, and again, I'm product engineering lead at Portainer. First of all, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I am pretty sure it's going to be a great one tonight. So, yeah. And, it's going to be about how to deploy and manage apps on using Portainer. I'll be running a few slides and then most of my time doing the demo. Lastly, we will run a Q&A session to if you have any questions or. Okay, so first thing first, what is Portainer? Portainer is a centralized container management tool. So Portainer being a container management tool, as long as your container environment is supported by us, and AKS is a great example, you can simply import that into our system, and there you go, you're ready to go. So from that point in time, you can use our GUI to deploy containers on like AKS, but then you don't have to know anything about the underlying Docker CLI or kube control, or not even a single Kubernetes manifest. So that's the beauty of Portainer, and that's why we. And over time, if you get better with Kubernetes, if you get more ones, then you can use our features like GitOps Engine that will allow you to develop your own advanced manifest and then deploy from a Git repo. And also, we expose all the APIs that you can use. So if you want to automate the entire container lifecycle, then there's another option that you can go with. So what would you expect from a container management platform? Obviously, it needs to support the orchestration, which could be Swarm or Kubernetes, monitoring and logging, CI/CD networking, all these things. These elements are to be expected. So then the question is, why is container management platform important? So why would you need one? And the answer is pretty simple, that because you want to run containers in production. You can either self-assemble one from the CNCF landscape over there, or you can just use us. And which way you go, you must have one, because you want to run containers in production. So who uses Portainer? Pretty much anyone, really. So if you're a manager, and because we hide all the complexities for you, so that even you're not super technical, you can jump onto our GUI and find out what's going on. And developers who will be mostly in charge of implementing Docker files, which becomes container images. Developers, of course, can use those images to deploy, manage, and troubleshoot RISE apps on. Lastly, DevOps / platform teams. Of course, they are full on automation, so they can use our GitOps engine, or they can just simply use our APIs to automate the workflows. These are just showing you our product variants. So we support Swarm, Docker, and Kubernetes. And we are actually gaining quite a lot of attention in the edge space. So specifically IoT and IIoT, which is the industrial IoT. That's a separate topic, so I will concentrate on Kubernetes for today. So what's our goal? It's pretty simple. We want to make the complexity around containers / Kubernetes and allow you to use it without too much knowledge. of course, you have to understand what Kubernetes is and what namespace is. But the thing is, learning manifest and, for instance, like injecting a secret into pod, those kind of things could be challenging. So those are the problems that we are trying to solve for you. Questions so far? Or?
A simple guy. I like to keep things simple. When I'm reading containers are complex to use and everything else, Portainer make it simple.
Right, so let's say if I want to run a Docker container on my local PC, let's say, and you've got to know how to execute Docker run command. And then that Docker run command itself has about 20, 30 parameters that eventually have to go through and figure out what to do with those. And it translated all those into UI. So you can follow our applications page and just and choose what you want to do. So what I meant by simplicity.
40, slightly, almost got it.
Okay.
Do you like to say then that maybe simplistic way, if you were to use ChatGPT to actually ask do this scenario, it comes back with the questions, more or less, is that what Portainer's doing?
Oh, it's more, I'd say you do not have to learn this, which I can show you later on. Like,
Sorry, I'm
probably a
reading
little easier.
so,
But, oh, I'm a visual person, so
yeah, so
probably will. So let's run through some of the architecture stuff because it'll be useful for the demo. How is Portainer deployed and configured? It's a lightweight container image. So it can run pretty much anywhere. Cloud, on-prem, IoT, could be anywhere. And Portainer itself could manage 45,000 environments. That environment so presents edge devices as well. I don't think we will have like 45,000 AKS clusters to manage, but it's mostly edge. We can support up to that number. And again, you can import pretty much any container runtime environment into Portainer and just get going. The other beautiful thing is that we allow you to connect to your auth provider. So if you are using Azure AD as a SSO, figure it, GitHub, Google, or even the normal Microsoft AD or OpenLDAP as well. So those common providers are all supported. We also have a strict RBAC model, so you define teams, and of course the users could be coming from your auth provider. Then assign those users/teams to specific environment. And that could be really granular. So if you want developers to access only one namespace from a Kubernetes cluster, you can do that. Next one is that your users, Kubernetes users, they don't have to interact with your Kubernetes cluster directly. So if you have like one or two, it's fine. But if you start to have 10s or 20s of AKS clusters, let's say, then as a platform engineer, it gets tricky. So instead, what we act as is a proxy that you allow the users to jump onto our Portainer GUI. They will get access to the backend Kubernetes clusters over proxy. So the management becomes easier.
Before you move in, so the idea is not just what's the right word? It's not the GUI, just that. You are actually abstracting a lot of the complexity of running containers. And we know that once you build your applications on top of containers, it becomes really tricky to orchestrate all of that. So you take all that complexity out, and then you give people a single pane of glass where they could actually interact with their application It doesn't matter if that application is sitting on a Kubernetes and you actually support a lot other orchestration solution. And it doesn't matter if it's on Azure or if it's on the edge. It is all gonna be using this single pane of glass.
Yes.
And behind the scenes, you are still using the same tools that people are familiar with. That be is whatever CI/CD tool, whatever GitOps tools, it is still behind the scenes. You give it back to people in one GUI. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. And what I mean by proxy is that if I go into Portainer and list namespaces, it's going to run the native Kubernetes API call. So everything is Kubernetes certified from that point of time. And nothing's like we built anything special. It's just proxy. That's what I meant. Even for Docker and Docker Swarm as well.
Sorry, I've got a question. Would you use Portainer as a learning tool? Create a Docker file and then build an image using Portainer. Does it reveal a command so that you can see what it's doing under the hood?
Yes. So, the commands, no, unfortunately. So what we do is once the image is run from Portainer, and we, based on the user who filled in the fields, we use those to craft the Docker run and then run it for you. So it doesn't really tell you exactly which command it has ran, but of course it can be used for the learning tool.
So basically you are providing, keep on coming back to this. Basically what you are providing is an abstraction. People who really know that their application requires the power of Kubernetes. Again, they don't want to go into that level of managing and that level of going into deep detail running a Kubernetes. So you provide them with that abstraction, and on top of that, you actually provide a GUI. So what your customer are after, like you've got customers who knows that the power of Kubernetes, but they are not skilled, or they don't want to actually grow that skill within their team.
So there are several use cases. So you will be surprised that we've got quite a lot of Swarm customers. And they love Swarm because it's simple. And then most of them, they want to move on to Kubernetes. So that's why we fit in quite nicely, so that you try out Swarm and then slowly transition into Kubernetes.
Excuse me, Steven. Do you guys do something like flag stars? For example, when a image repository gets updated, do you automatically sync your image repository against your pod?
No, not at the moment, no. It's all based on Git right now.
I'm thinking as we were talking about that, transitioning, so it's kind of like having you order Uber for people, except now you've suddenly got 15 people, but Uber says, not a problem, we can handle that, let's go. More or less is Portainer simplistically doing that.
Yeah, and the other use cases is that there will be Kubernetes experts in each organization. And what they try to do, like one of our customers, is that they automated the whole thing with Terraform. And what they do is provision a fully ready Kubernetes cluster with Portainer running, and then just hand it over to the developers. It's another use case, and they use it for troubleshooting purpose. So the thing is, you can fully automate all the Kubernetes CI/CD pipelines, but use Portainer to do the proxying, authentication, RBAC, sort of the use case. So what I just talked about, it's just the external auth kind of thing. Okay, the last slide. Cool. I wanted to show you how Portainer works with Kubernetes quickly. So I mentioned that Portainer can import any of your Kubernetes cluster into the system And what I meant by that is the agent. So you do not want to, let's say if you have 5 Kubernetes clusters, you do not want to run 5 Portainer instances because then you've got 5 Portainer servers to manage. Rather, what we strongly recommend is run Portainer outside of the orchestrator, because you don't want, let's say if you run Portainer on a production environment, if it goes down, then Portainer goes down, and you don't want that. So what we recommend is run Portainer as a management cluster, management tool, and then deploy agents in each cluster, orchestrators, to them from Portainer and how you should do it. That's this piece here. So scale out of clusters, Kubernetes nodes, and then
How do you guys fit in into the GitOps workflow? So the idea of a GitOps is that application and you've got an environment as well. So you build your application, you put it in a container, and then you deploy that container onto your. But also you are using the same Git to manage your infrastructure.
Mhm.
So how I heard you talk about GitOps as well. So how do you fit into that?
it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario here. So, so Portainer, there are certain limitations with Portainer. So our GitOps engine does not support Helm at the moment, which is heavily used for the infrastructure components. So, but if you're willing to translate that into manifests, then of course you can. Our goal here is to deploy apps. So once the agent is registered by Portainer, there are 2 levels of proxy requests. First thing is the admin. And again, we are trying to do everything natively. So what we do in the backend is, if you are a cluster admin, then we will be using the cluster admin role, which is part of the native Kubernetes cluster role. And if you are a normal user, like a developer, we will be crafting a role for you so that you only have access to certain
In on-premise scenarios, the agent will be deployed in the on-premise Kubernetes cluster. But what I'm understanding, is the server is sitting in the on-premise or it has to be
run anywhere.
Portainer.io? Is it your server outside the organization or?
Just to clarify, this is not a SaaS offer, so you can host it wherever you want. You install it inside your data center, on-prem, in the cloud, in your cloud. You offer a Portainer service. Yeah.
Oh, no, there's no SaaS.
Which is might be the engine that sits inside one part of it.
Super simple to run. Okay, so I'll move on to the demo. So I did not want to make this really simple. I wanted to show you how you can actually use Portainer to manage AKS clusters in production. And this will involve quite a lot of networking. I'm sorry, but the good news is I have done all the plumbings in advance. So it's gonna be mostly around how to deploy Portainer agents and applications. Okay, so it's like this. Where should I start? Okay, so you guys read or is it too small?
It's a bit too small.
That's what I said here.
Maybe I can zoom in.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's better.
Well done.
Zoom in on the bit you're talking about.
Okay, cool. So
Just keep plus in case.
So first thing first, networking. I'm not saying this is like 100% production ready, but say like 70, 80. I don't know what Microsoft calls it these days, but landing zones. It's kind of different across organizations, but this will give you a good idea on how you should run in Azure. So virtual network in Sydney and Melbourne. And the Sydney network will have 4 subnets, AKS clusters. What I'll be first doing is, of course, we need to deploy Portainer. So I'm going to be deploying Portainer on this AKS cluster using our official chat and publishing over this DNS and we are pre-populated cloud layer. And as part of this, I was going to demonstrate how to apply whitelisting. Because when you create a load balance object from Kubernetes, in pretty much any cloud, say public instance, I just wanted to quickly show you how to stop that. The VPN's not really working, fortunately. So, but I'll show you the annotation that you can use. Then what I'll then do is in these 2 agent AKS clusters, I will deploy Portainer agent. And as I just mentioned, the load balancer becomes a public instance. To show you how to provision the agent inside a private network. And our Portainer instance will be able to register these 2 over private network. And as part of it, AKS got the Key Vault CSI integrate, I think. So it's literally what it is this AKS cluster will now be able to fetch secrets from a Key Vault instance. So I'll quickly show you how that can be done. And finally, I will use Portainer to deploy sample web app, then host it with Azure Application Gateway. That's got the what they call Application Gateway Ingress Controller. So I have pre-enabled it on these 2 agent AKS clusters, so that the web app will be accessible on these 2 URLs across regions, Sydney and Melbourne. And finally, I will use the Azure Front Door, which is the global service that you can use like your load balancer, so to speak. This URL and show you the traffic being load balanced.
Front door is basically a load balancer, but it's based on the we're hearing from.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a regionless service. Okay, so demo time. By the way, this people here is available in public. I'll get up. So if you want, I can put it down at the end of it. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so first thing first. So what I'm going to be doing is, of course, I'll have to deploy Portainer. Let me. And while that's running, we'll quickly show you this. So this is our official Helm chart, and have you actually worked with Kubernetes before? So the main thing to note is the ingress part. So I'll be using Nginx ingress controller, and this is the bit I talked about, whitelisting source range. And these 2 are the public IPs of our OpenVPN, but again, I couldn't. I have to open it up. And then I'm telling the Helm chart that my Portainer instance should be accessible on this DNS. And one thing, I'm gonna grab my license. Sorry, I have to hide it, unfortunately. It's being recorded.
This is the one that you just started up with Helm.
Yes.
Yep. That's that.
So some of you might be questioning how did I get the SSL certificate? So that's something I will show you right now. Oh, by the way, the first thing, the thing I forgot to mention is that you deploy a service from Kubernetes, the IP address is not static. So if you have to, let's say, redeploy your Nginx ingress controller, then your IP will change, which means that the DNS associated with your IP will be updated. You do not. So what I'm telling my help chat is that so you can pre-create a public IP address like this, and then tell your the value to use this IP specifically. Right here. So, and this is Flux, and something I was going to talk to you about. So in AKS, one thing I really like about is this GitOps is built in, and the background is it's pretty much Flux if you about it. So they are the founders of GitOps, and as part of AKS cluster, I wanted it to deploy pretty much any infrastructure components for me, so that it's fully ready for the developers to jump onto Portainer and just start using it. And so what do I have? Looks like this. And if you are not sure about GitOps, the idea behind it is that you want to define your infrastructure as YAML. So that, let's say, this instance, I have got Linux ingress controller here. So as soon as I enable that GitOps from AKS, then it's going to go and deploy this for you, which means that your developer does not have to worry about all these infrastructure components. What they need to do is once it's ready, they can jump on and just start using service. What I'm showing you is I'm actually acting as a platform engineer so that I know what's going on. Then I'm setting everything up for my developer. These are the special annotations that you can use. So your load balancer internal, because you don't want it to be exposed. Internal false, yeah. Exposed and public, I mean. And then you can say my public IP is in this resource group, and then specify your load balancer IP. And AKS is going to automatically pick this IP from this pip here, assign it to your load balancer. And how to make your load balancer static. And the way I issued my certificate is using Let's Encrypt. I'm pretty sure it's a famous one. What I did was I told it to, as a prerequisite, please go and install Cert Manager for me. And of course, as part of it, I am telling GitOps to deploy several namespaces. And then as part of it, it's going to generate the certificate for me. So it's pretty much ready to go. So coming back to Portainer, when you on it looks like this. And as you see, as soon as I deployed my Portainer instance, it automatically picked up the local environment. And from this point of time, I can interact with it to create apps, namespaces, and so on. This is more about Portainer's, AKS cluster instances. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to deploy Portainer agents using GitOps built into AKS. Uncomment all these. What I'm telling it is go and enable my agents. And what's going to happen in the background is that the GitOps will pick it up and then deploy these agents for me. And what I talked about was that I wanted my agent to be exposed on a private network, which is this one. And how you do is, so this is the official manifest that we provide, but then there are slight variations, which is this bit here. I'm telling it is do not expose my load balancer in public, make it private, then use the subnet I'm telling it, and then make it. This way, again, you do not have to worry about the anymore. Once it's set up, you can. Now, to wait for a Portainer agent to be up and running. This external IP sounds like public IP, but it's not. It's just external to your Kubernetes cluster.
What, basically, what is the agents going to do in the cluster? Is it similar to the way that the Flux agent is doing, and it's just talking to that agent, or?
So just to be clear, I am using ops feature that's part of AKS.
So basically, the agent is, example, my understanding about the Flux or the RCD is that it's sitting there, always comparing state, the current state of your cluster with the prior state in your GitHub. Is the Portainer container, or is the Portainer agent doing something similar where it is always checking if the state is different from what the developer or the platform engineer wants it to be, what the current state is?
Yeah, so the application that was deployed from Portainer, yes. This is outside of Portainer. Acting as a platform engineer, getting my environment ready to hand it over to developer. So that's, so up and GitOps is one of the demo, so I'll show it to you. Cool. So now you see the IP that I've assigned is up and running. So now what I can do is from my Portainer instance, I can go to environments. Yeah, we actually support Azure Container Instance as well. Got to mention. And Nomad as well. But Kubernetes and so this is, again, DNS that I pre-populated. So by the way, in the name, AS is Australia Southeast, AE is East. And so when I come back to my homepage, I will be seeing two agents running. So the agent running in Sydney and one in Melbourne. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to add a registry, which will be here. This is a service principal. So a service principal that I created with only the ACR pull access registry, so it can't push. And one thing that's cool about this is that it allows you to browse the registry. So if you want to take a look at what's going on, you can come in here. It also shows you all the layers and so on. It's pretty much similar to Docker Hub. And the next thing I'll do is I am now going to those two AKS clusters. And what I'm going to say is for my dev prod namespaces, access to this ACR instance. So it's giving proper attention to it. Southeast, the same thing. Yeah, it may look painful, but this is just the way how Kubernetes works. When you create a secret, it cannot be shared across different namespaces. So that's why this registry secret has to be in each namespace. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to create a developer. So I'm about to demonstrate our RBAC. And by the way, this is an internal user. If you use the external auth provider, then we've got these 5 predefined roles, and we are reviewing custom roles at the moment. So far, these are I'm gonna say is in this Sydney AKS instance, I'm going to assign myself standard who has access to undeploy manage, so those standard types. Then inside here, inside Sydney, what I'm going to tell it is you have access to the dev namespace. So, okay. So Steven now has only access to the dev namespace in Sydney. I'll repeat the same. Done. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to log out as an admin, and I am going to log in as a developer. Okay, so it looks different, right? You do not see all the settings that you used to see at the left-hand side here. Only has the notifications, which is what you have done within Portainer, and have access to only these two. I'm on tethering, so it's a little bit slow at the moment. Internet's okay.
You like how the settings are. Just in case. What is this?
I get loaded up. I'm not too sure what. There you go. There was a little glitch. So in the Sydney region, if you see, I only have access to Steve. Oh, by the way, default is like the default namespace that anyone gets access to, but with Portainer, you can disable it. Same in Sydney, Melbourne. So now what I'm going to do, I will demonstrate how you can deploy a web app without knowing a single line of manifest, which is under this add with form. I'm going to call it Portainer demo, maybe. This is the registry that I added in. The image I want to use. As you see, you don't have to know about all the manifests. All we do is if you want to add an environment variables, just add them in, configurations, persistent data, all those things. But I won't be doing that today. And I now want to publish my application. And there are 3 types: cluster IP, node port, and load balancer. Because I will be publishing this over the application gateway, which is Ingress, I do not have to publish them on Kubernetes itself. So I'm going to use the cluster IP, which is the internal inter-Kubernetes resource. Now I'm going to quickly create a ingress. As you see, the Azure Gateway ingress class has come up because it was pre-enabled from the AKS instance. And for that, this is the URL, so AE demo app, and I pre-created the PLS as part of Box. As you see, you did not have to interact with Kubernetes itself. You could just go through our UI or everything without knowing a single line of manifest. So once this is up and running, might be. This is my application gateway instance. You see it's updating. So the app gateway is actually being updated from your AKS instance. So a simple web app. And you see the Sydney, the name there, the pod that's running. So okay, now the last one is that now let's say I got used to Kubernetes and now I want to use our ops engine. Of the form, I can do the manifest. Yeah. Your repo isn't private, you can do the authentication. It's in public, so I don't have to. And all my stuff is under this branch. And the location is in README. If you do not enable automatic updates, then it's just a one-off deployment. And now if you enable automatic updates, then it's the GitOps feature. But what it's going to do is it's going to well and look into your repo every 1 minute or 5 minutes. It depends on your requirements. And then while that's being deployed, I will show you the manifest. So it's the Kubernetes manifest. So cluster IP service on port 9898, deployment with class 1, tables, an image name, an ingress role. Pretty much what I did in the Sydney AKS cluster that I went through the forms is pretty much translated into a manifest. And I'm doing it from our GitOps, built-in GitOps engine.
GitOps interval, what's that actually running at on the Git side? Is it like doing it's not using a trigger because that'd be the other way around, right? An action.
Okay, so how we work is that we will be monitoring your repo every 1 minute.
Looking at a diff or global sort of
So Yeah, it looks for your specific comment ID. And when a new comment comes in, we will put diff.
Can you do the opposite way where an action from Git's triggering that to
You
the
can.
opposite? Like, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not sitting there just triggering every minute, but it's getting an outside trigger. Just a question about it.
Yeah, so we actually do have a webhook here.
Right.
Yeah, so if you want to do it on demand, then you can go.
So you can use an Git action to,
Yes.
done something.
So this is, I'd say this is a more traditional continuous deployment, whereas that's the another method of using Git.
And you, for the other way, where like when you put a change and then that triggers does that need authenticated into your cluster environment, right?
No, it's a public API. There's no authentication to it.
You do your change on your Git, you commit it, that triggers a change to the environment. You don't need, the agent's already in the cluster. It is just waiting for something.
No, so this webhook is just a post call, API post call. And the URL is against your Portainer, which is our API. So
Does it authenticate? It is an authenticated thing.
no, it's not. It's a
Does that mean you can potentially DDoS that sort of thing?
but the thing is, your Portainer URL will likely be in your private network.
Yeah, right, okay.
It's-
So
you
it
don't
has to
want
be
that.
an internal through a VPN, not right.
So if you're using GitHub Actions, then the runner can be inside your network and then trigger the.
There are an option on your UI to port just
So remember this one deployed through the forms in Sydney, and we actually provide you all the MI. And if you want to, you can make the changes here and then do the apply changes. Okay, cool. Now this will be up and running. And it's telling me Melbourne, which is good. So now the last one will be load balancing between two regions. So there, so so this front door is configured to talk to pretty much these two endpoints. So now if I go and hit this guy, it's Melbourne. If I refresh, and again, Sydney. Load balanced between the two regions. Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I had for today. Hopefully it helped you.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add a comment. The UI is really, I really love the UI. It's really fluid. And it's very intuitive. Actually, that's one of the other comments that we've got. The people online as well. It's that the UI is really fluid and it's very similar to the way, if you are familiar with the Microsoft Azure portal. Job on that.
Great. So
Slightly off the cuff curly question. Have you noticed, you're an engineer and this sort of thing, so have you noticed anyone using Portainer instances for pushing botnets? Because I've just been like noticing something on a system that I'm on, and looks like they're using some sort of information to start up containers. They've basically got access to quite a lot of systems, and they managed to automate it. I'm just wondering if they're using something like Portainer, because I don't seem to have the knowledge of Kubernetes directly. They're still managing to fire off a whole lot of instances of It's a cool, I know it's a curly question. I just saw it on something on one of the forums that I'm on. And I was trying to work out what was going on just before I was looking, and that's why I asked about the webbook, the things. I know
Could
that
be a
sounds,
side effect of just the fact that we're trying to, enable people to use the technology.
yeah, it's
So
just
it
very
just,
quick. It's starting
it
multiple
is,
things
it
up
is a tool that you can use for automation, for any kind of purposes.
for any purposes. Yeah,
So
yeah.
at that point in time, yeah, as we said earlier, you can deploy it whenever in your own infrastructure, in your cloud. Whatever you do with your cloud is part of your responsibility, but yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that's part of enabling people using a specific technology, I guess. I don't think we report, this is just the kind of use cases
that
we
sort of stuff.
fair enough, but
Yeah, I know. I know it's a curly question. It was just something I was noticing someone was asking me for help about
So
something.
Steven,
like,
if people want to play around with it, you have like a free subscription.
Oh, yes, so we provide 5 nodes free license. So up to 5 nodes, Kubernetes or Swarm, Docker, doesn't matter. Up to 5, it's free. Sign up in our
There's another question from people, which is, do you guys support container apps now, or is it on the roadmap to support container apps?
the Azure one. So I don't think it's supported now, but we can talk to our product and see what's going to happen. But running Portainer on container apps will be fine, because it's literally just a container.
It's pretty cool, and I'm trying to compare Portainer with something else on the market. So who is a major competitor of Portainer?
Similar ones, Rancher, I'd say. Potentially OpenShift.
Similar idea of something, you're getting someone else to manage the stuff, like the thing is the port, you go to a port with your containers and say, yep, throw them on a ship and ship them off. Containers kind of like the ports with the containers. Ranch is more like ranch is managing a large amount of stock.
Yeah, so the main difference is that we're not involved in the orchestrations. What I mean is building the underlying orchestration. Like Rancher and OpenShift, I'm pretty sure they can, or virtual machines or whatever, and then build up a Kubernetes for you, and then OpenShift can manage it. We are just an overlay. It's the major difference.
Feel free not to answer this one, but would we want, like, what is it that does have in the future? Like, you've got something that, like, a roadmap that you guys are excited about?
can ensure some of that one, yeah. We're still trying to make it accessible in the cloud and the Kubernetes space, which is kind of always ever evolving.
Yep.
But we're also focusing a lot on the edge space at the moment, IoT, industrial IoT,
Nice.
where we see a lot of people and companies are really trying to pick up Industry 4.0 move and trying to move, trying to grab all these paradigms from the IT and port them into the industrial world to be more efficient. And containerization is actually enabling portability and all the benefits that you can see from the cloud. You're trying to just basically port that in this context. So we're also focusing, yes, on this area as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Steven, a quick question. So how is Portainer managing the relationship with Kubernetes experts in the community? Obviously, this is a tool to make Kubernetes a lot easier to use. Do they view it as something that will take their job away? The guys with years of Kubernetes experience and CKA certification, and they are very high valued in the market for that skill set. How do you manage that relationship?
Yeah, so our target is really clear who are starting their Kubernetes journey. But at the same time, what we talked about is the proxy. So that's something of our customers love about. That instead of accessing 28 clusters using kube control config, you use context and then switching between things around, and do that within UI. And the thing with Thing is we've got the kube control shell built in like that. So if you do want to interact with Kubernetes using kube control,
Right, okay.
because we've got the GitOps engine and all those integrations in place, if even you're an expert, use it to craft your own manifesting. If you want to use Helm chart, go for it.
Cool, thank you.
So if that's all the questions here, we want to thank our presenter here, Steven. You've done an awesome job. And thank you so much, everyone here for coming. And again, thank you for Microsoft, and see you in the next ones.
Yeah.
Thank you. Some points here left, so.
A bit of left, yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Cool. Thank you.
If you want to talk to me, that's my email.
Awesome. Appreciate it.